Another Tuesday. I was on my third cup of coffee, trying to skim through world history exam papers one last time before class. My life as a community college history teacher? Yeah, it was boring, no lie. But at least it was calm. Totally different from the hell I'd left behind 10 years ago. 10 years. I'd built a whole damn fortress in my head, brick by mental brick, around that one terrifying memory. The memory of that night in the deep stone cellar under Thorn Manor. The screams, the blood, and a person. Yeah, a person. They were brutalized, completely messed up. I had to convince myself, that it was just some family member losing their damn mind. A sick, twisted ritual from a bunch of fanatics right in my own family. Just human madness, that's all. A human tragedy, nothing more. It was the only way I could keep breathing, keep living. I told myself it was clear-cut. There was a victim, a perpetrator. Made sense. It had to make sense. Anything else was just too much. The images, though, they never really faded. They just waited, behind that fortress wall, always there. My phone rang, scared the hell out of me. It was a weird number, private. I picked it up hesitantly. A dry, almost raspy voice on the other end. A family lawyer, talking about an incident and inheritance. My blood ran cold. He rattled off names of the old generation, the Thorn elders. All of them gone. Suddenly. Mysteriously. What the hell now? This family, always something, always. I packed a bag, just the essentials. My old college sweatshirt, some faded jeans, no fancy suits. I wasn't going back to be that Ethan. I was still just a history teacher, for now, but deep down I knew it wasn't that simple. Not with the Thorns. The drive back to Thorn Manor, that ancient estate in New England, felt like a journey into a bad dream. I thought I'd escaped it for good. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt, like a blanket of old secrets pressing down. When I finally steered my beat-up sedan through the rusted iron gates, a cold, stale wave washed over me. It felt like the house itself was exhaling, a long, drawn-out breath from centuries of stone and secrets. My skin prickled. "Come on, Ethan, you're an adult," I mumbled to myself, gripping the steering wheel. Just an old house. Just an old, old house. The gravel crunched under my tires, each sound too loud in the eerie quiet. Eleanor, the old housekeeper, she hadn't changed a bit. Still the same tightly coiled silver bun on her head, those cloudy, ancient eyes that seemed to look right through you, like you were just another worn-out page in a very old book. "Young master has returned," she said, her voice flat, almost unnervingly calm. No surprise, no warmth, just a statement. It was chilling. Dinner was just as weird. Just me and her in that ridiculously huge dining room. The table was long enough for 20 people, but only 2 settings were laid out, miles apart. Eleanor just stood there, by the sideboard, pouring my tea from a silver pot that gleamed in the dim light. Every now and then I'd catch her eye, a quick, almost imperceptible glance, but it was enough to make me feel watched, like she was reading something off my face, something I didn't even know was there. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. It was unsettling, but I tried to shrug it off. She's old, I told myself. Just an old lady, that's all. But the tea felt heavier in my cup. The silence in the room stretched. And my food, it tasted like dust. That night, my first night back in my old room, it felt smaller, colder. The stone walls were thick, like a tomb. But even through them, I heard things. Not just the wind whistling through gaps. No, this was different. A strange sound, like a very soft sigh, coming from somewhere deep inside the walls. Then a slow, deliberate creak from downstairs. Each groan of the old wood floor was stretched out, long and drawn out, like someone was dragging something heavy, something very heavy.
A shiver ran down my spine, tracing a cold path from my neck to my tailbone. My eyes snapped open. I was suddenly wide awake, heart hammering against my ribs. Thump, 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 so loud in the quiet. I pushed myself up, sitting on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. "It's just an old house, Ethan," I whispered, running a hand through my hair. "Old houses make noises, that's all it is." I lay back down, pulling the heavy blankets up to my chin.
But the sigh, the creak, they echoed in my mind. Sleep felt a million miles away. The next few days blurred. I tried to fall back into my old routine, but it was impossible. Thorn Manor felt bigger and way more run down than I remembered. Every floorboard creaked a different tune. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, deeper. It was like the whole damn house was exhaling, slowly, deliberately. I needed answers, or at least something to anchor myself. So I headed straight for the library. Figured if anyone knew what was going on, it'd be the dead guys in their old books. Dust. Just layers and layers of dust. It coated everything, a fine powdery shroud over ancient leather-bound volumes. The air was thick with the smell of old paper, and something else, something metallic almost. I started pulling books, running my fingers over brittle pages. History, philosophy, genealogy, a whole damn lineage of thorns written out in elegant script. I was looking for something, anything, about that tragedy 10 years ago, or maybe a clue about how all the elders managed to drop dead at the same time. I found some family records eventually, bound in dark, heavy leather. But reading them, man, that was a trip. They talked about inheritance rituals and the rebirth of the bloodline. All this flowery language, vague as hell. No specifics, just lyrical descriptions of the sacred duty and the cycle of renewal. It gave me the goddamn chills. It felt like they were talking around something huge, hiding the worst parts in plain sight. Like they were trying to tell me something horrifying, but in a way that would just make me sound crazy if I tried to explain it. What the hell did rebirth of the bloodline even mean? It certainly didn't sound like a regular inheritance. My stomach twisted. Then the weird stuff started. Little things at first, enough to make me question if I was just losing it. One afternoon, I was deep into one of those cryptic family journals, head buried in a particularly unsettling passage about the offering. Suddenly, with a loud thud, a thick, heavy book slid right off a shelf beside me, hitting the floor inches from my foot. My heart damn near jumped out of my chest. I jerked back, breath hitched. "Wind, Ethan, just the damn wind," I mumbled, trying to calm my ragged nerves. But the windows were shut, locked. I ran a hand over my face, the skin cold. My eyes darted around the room. It was too quiet, too still. Another night, I woke up, throat dry as a desert. I padded down to the kitchen for some water, my bare feet silent on the cold stone. And there it was, one of the old wooden cabinet doors, slightly ajar. I knew for a fact I'd closed it before going to bed. Always do. It was a habit. I stood there, staring at that open door in the dark, a cold tendril of fear snaking up my spine. No, this wasn't just an old house settling. It wasn't just the wind. Someone, or something, was here with me. And it definitely wasn't Eleanor. Speaking of Eleanor, she was getting weirder by the day. More than just her usual unnerving calm. I caught her once standing perfectly still in the middle of a dark hallway, staring straight ahead at nothing. Her lips were moving, whispering something ancient, something I couldn't make out. It sounded like an old chant, guttural and rhythmic. When I called her name, Eleanor, she flinched,
a tiny, almost imperceptible jump. Then she turned, a tight, forced smile spreading across her papery face. "Oh, young master," she rasped, her voice dry as dead leaves. But her cloudy eyes, they held a terrifying sharpness, like she knew everything, knew exactly what she was saying, what she was seeing, knew what I was missing. It was a knowing that cut right through me, deeper than any lie. And then the dreams. Oh, God, the dreams. They stopped being just a replay of that night, that brutal murder. No, they twisted. They became something worse. The screams, the blood were still there, flooding my mind. But the victim, it wasn't a person anymore. Not human face, not human limbs. It was a shapeless thing, a writhing mass of something fleshy, grotesque. A pulpy, sickening blob of muscle and bone that stretched and distorted, screaming a sound that wasn't human, a sound that drilled into my very core.
I'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding like a drum solo, gasping for air in the absolute dark of my room. My whole body would be trembling, the sheets tangled around me like a death shroud. "Damn it," I'd whisper into the dark, pressing the heels of my hands into my eyes. "I'm losing it. I'm seriously damn obsessed." Sleep became a joke. My body was exhausted, aching, but my mind, it was wide awake, buzzing with a frantic energy. Every creak, every shadow, every strange word from Eleanor, every twisted image from my dreams, they fueled a desperate, gnawing need. I had to know. I had to find the truth about what happened 10 years ago, what those family records really meant, why the Thorn elders all died, and, most importantly, I had to confirm what I thought I saw. I had to know if my memory was just a construct, a lie I'd told myself to survive. Because if it wasn't human madness, then what the hell was it? I needed to know, for my sanity, for my damn life. I needed to finally lay that ghost to rest, or die trying. At least, I told myself, I'd die knowing the truth, the real truth. The basement. God, the thought of it, that stone hovel deep beneath Thorn Manor, it just kept pulling at me. My mind, a broken record, looped back to that night 10 years ago. The damp, moldy smell of ancient stone. Yeah, that was there. But then it layered with something else, something metallic, thick, the smell of blood. And the flickering candlelight throwing those long, dancing shadows. Shadows that moved like things I couldn't name. That night, that damn night, it was all there, vivid as hell, clawing at the edges of my sanity. I had to go back. I had to face it. Maybe down there, in the very place where everything broke, I'd find something, some scrap of truth, some proof. Or maybe just a final, crushing answer to why the Thorn elders all checked out, all at once, all so quietly. My hunt through the library became a frantic scramble. I tore through old ledgers, brittle journals, anything that looked like it had seen a century or two. Dust, a constant, gritty companion, got everywhere, in my hair, under my nails, coating my tongue. My eyes burned from staring at faded script. My head throbbed with the sheer weight of unspoken history. I kept picturing that damn basement, the chill in the air, the cold dread. I felt like I was chasing a ghost, not just of a memory, but of a truth that stubbornly refused to show its face. Days bled into an endless blur of paper and paranoia. My fingers, stained with ink and age, skimmed across parchment, searching for a sign, a key word, anything to validate what I swore I'd seen. The strange happenings in the manor amplified the gnawing feeling inside me. The subtle creaks, the shadows that seemed to shift on their own, Eleanor's unnerving presence, it all screamed that I was close,
too close, and that the house, or something in it, was watching my every move, playing a terrifying game. Then, buried deep in a forgotten drawer of an antique desk, tucked beneath a stack of dusty correspondence about long-dead ancestors, I found it. A thick, leather-bound sketch album, its cover warped with age. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, among faded landscapes and portraits, was a single, disturbing phantasm, a crude but unmistakable drawing. It was a ritual. A crowd of cloaked figures, their faces obscured by shadows, stood in a circle. In the center, on a raised stone slab, was an object, a thing. Flickering candlelight bathed the scene in an eerie glow, just like in my memory. And that thing in the middle, it was writhing, twisting, distorted. The crude lines on the page couldn't hide the impression of pain, of terror. My breath hitched. A wave of sick, bitter relief washed over me. "Holy hell," I whispered, the words rasping in my dry throat. I was right. My memory wasn't a fabrication, not entirely. Here it was, proof, a cold, hard image of the atrocity. This was it. This was what I had seen. This was the dark heart of the Thorne family's legacy. This was the damned evidence. I clutched the album, my knuckles white, the leather digging into my palm. I had to show someone. I had to make someone else see what I was seeing, what they had done. My feet, almost on their own, carried me through the echoing halls, past the portraits of stern, dead Thornes, to the sitting room. Eleanor.
She was always there, a fixture of the old house, knitting by the window, her back to me. Her needles clicked, a soft, hypnotic rhythm, the only sound in the vast, silent room. "Eleanor," I said, my voice barely a whisper, still raw from the revelation. I watched her shoulders, tiny beneath her worn cardigan, twitch, but she didn't turn. My voice, usually steady, was now shaky, laced with a disgust I couldn't hide. I held out the phantasm. This is what happened, isn't it? Tell me, what is this? This brutal, sickening thing our own family did to that person. It's absolutely disgusting. I just can't believe it." My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild drumbeat against the silence. I needed her to confirm it, to validate my horror, to share the weight of this monstrous truth. Eleanor didn't look up. Her knitting needles, which had been clicking with such monotonous regularity, slowly, deliberately stilled. The yarn, a pale gray, lay draped across her lap like a forgotten shroud. A moment passed, long and heavy, punctuated only by the frantic pounding of my own blood in my ears. Then, with a slowness that felt like an eternity, her head lifted. Her cloudy eyes, deep-set and ancient, turned to me. No flicker of surprise, no hint of emotion, just a gaze that was utterly flat, unwavering, cutting right through me. I felt every muscle in my body lock up, a sudden, cold paralysis. My skin crawled. The air around me seemed to thicken, pressing down. "Oh, young master," she rasped, her voice dry as dead leaves, completely devoid of any feeling, as if we were discussing the weather. It was a voice that held no sympathy, no warmth, no judgment, just a chilling, matter-of-fact tone. "Still bothered by that, are we? But I thought everyone understood. That thing, sacrificed all those years ago, it wasn't human. It was never human, young master." Her words hit me like a physical blow. Not a punch, but something heavier, something that shattered the very air around me. Not human? The entire carefully constructed facade of my memory, the rationalizations I'd built over 10 agonizing years to stay sane, to tell myself I had witnessed only human depravity, it all crumbled, it imploded. My world fractured, splintered into a million jagged pieces like glass hitting stone. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my breath catching in my throat, unable to move, unable to speak. My gaze, wide and frantic, locked on to the ancient phantasm in my trembling hand. And then I saw it, truly saw it. The crude lines, the distorted shape, it wasn't a person, not even a tortured, unrecognizable person. It was a shapeless horror, an indescribable obscenity that my mind, in its desperate need for order, had twisted into something palatable, something human. But now, with Eleanor's words echoing in the terrifying silence, those details I had so fiercely ignored, so violently shoved into the darkest corners of my mind, screamed out at me. The impossible angles, the too many limbs, the texture that wasn't skin, the mouth that wasn't meant for sound. Damn it, I thought, my head spinning, the room tilting precariously. Damn it all. If that wasn't a human being, then what in God's name was it? What unholy thing had my ancestors offered up in that abyssal dark? And the people who performed that ritual, my family, who were they, really? The horror didn't come from the death, not from the violence anymore. It came from the absolute absence of definition, from the formless, incomprehensible void that now stared back at me from the depths of my own family's history. It came from the sickening realization of what the Thorne family truly was, and what I, Ethan Thorne, had just become the head of. I looked around the cold, silent room, at the ghastly phantasm in my hand, and understood. I was surrounded by a truth far more terrible than anything I had ever imagined, a truth I couldn't begin to explain, and I was trapped.